Hello everyone. Welcome to another part of What If Deku Ran an Orphanage. If you enjoy the story, please like, subscribe and share the video. It really helps me out. I did not write the story. The original writer is Kyodon. Please go support them. Now let us dive in. I'm so sorry, sir. Sori said, as she did the dogza in front of Izuku, who was sitting behind his desk. Izuku sighed. Don't worry too hard about it, aside from you no one got hurt, and they only destroyed one hound. If it weren't for you, we never would have seen their faces. We must also apologize, had we been more vigilant this all could have been avoided, Sai said, as she and Tokoshi bowed. Part of the fault is mine, I should have seen something like this coming when I agreed to the exercise, Izuku told them, feeling a bit guilty for making them apologize for something that was meant to happen. I already have plans of increasing security, this just solidifies how necessary they are. So then, what do we do now? Chol asked. What can we do? Izuku asked. We just have to wait for the heroes to find them. And hope they don't do anything too bad with the stolen ship. Shinigami had never felt so embarrassed in her life. Not only had her mission failed, but she'd been captured on top of that. And now she was in a truck, in full body restraints, getting hauled to prison like a common crook. She couldn't imagine his disappointed Karai was with her. She wouldn't be surprised if they didn't come to rescue her given how disgraceful this whole thing was. Honestly, she couldn't imagine how the situation could much worse. What the fuck is that? She heard one of the guards up front shout. Kaboom! Out of nowhere, something exploded, shaking the ground so hard Shinigami almost thought they'd crashed. Shit, we're under attack! Shouted the guard. Call-ack! Shinigami heard the sound of the heavily reinforced glass getting shattered, and the truck started shaking as something happened out front. Did they really come for me? She felt bad just for hoping for such a thing, but it was either that or someone who came to kill her. Shing! Suddenly, a spear-like tail pierced through the back of the heavily armed prison truck. Well, it looked like it might be the latter. Two claws came through the hole and ripped open the steel like it was a tin can. And it came to Kaza, in her brand new pirate attire. She had a long brown pirate frock coat, covered with belts and pockets. It had a slit down the lower part of it, allowing her tail to move more freely, and her wings went through the back of the coat, thanks to two less visible slits in the back. On her head was the stereotypical pirate hat, and she wore a beige poet shirt typical of a pirate, a pair of long brown pants, and lastly some long brown boots. Kaza took a huff of her cigar, as she entered the van, and looked around for a moment before her eyes landed on Shinigami, who couldn't say anything because her mouth was covered by a metal plate. Who the hell is this? Shinigami gave Kaza a confused look, mostly because of her outfit, as the monstrous woman approached her, towering over the villain. Without a word, Kaza grabbed the metal plate blocking Shinigami's mouth, and tore it off with ease. And you are? Shinigami asked. None of your business, Kaza said, blowing out some smoke on her cigar, before picking her up by her restraints, and carrying her out of the truck. Once she got outside, she had a better view of her surroundings. Accompanying Kaza, was none other than Pai, who was also in more pirate-like attire. She wore a white puffy top with extremely puffy sleeves, and brown leather pants covered with paint, as well as a pair of brown shoes. The artist was carrying a long piece of paper, about the size of an average person. What a beautiful, horrid woman! Pai praised as she looked at Shinigami. I can smell the lives you've taken. Get to painting, we don't have much time, Kaza ordered. Very well, Pai said, as she set the paper down on the ground, and started painting. However, Shinigami's attention wasn't on them, rather, it was on the massive, flying pirate ship overhead. What the fuck? Shinigami asked, seeing this, defiance of nature and the very laws of physics. Captain, the radar's detecting another vehicle approaching. 20 miles out. Roru said over the earpiece. TCH. We need more time. Fire on them. Kaza ordered. A few moments later, many square sections of the ship opened up on the side, and advanced steely cannon popped out. At least 24 of them. Kaboom. Kaboom. Kaboom kaboom. The cannons fired shots of red-hot fire, lighting up the night sky as they flew past the point where they could see them clearly. Successful hit, Roru reported after a few moments. The vehicle has come to a stop. And its inhabitants? Kaza asked. They should be mostly fine, that level of power shouldn't have killed them, Roru explained. Good, Kaza said, before looking down at Pai, who was still finishing up her painting, which was now revealed to be a painting of Shinigami in her restraints, with her throat slit. Just adding the finishing touches, done. Pai stood up, and looked down at her work for a second, before acting her quirk. The painting rose out of the paper and became three-dimensional. An exact replica of Shinigami, only with a bleeding neck, and dead glazed-over eyes. Finally, Kaza said, as she picked up the real Shinigami and then picked up Pai with her other arm, before flapping her wings and taking to the sky. Kaza landed on the ship's deck, and immediately, Roru wasted no time putting the force field up and making the ship rise. So this is the ninja lady? Karaki said, coming up to inspect the new person, while Kaza set Pai down. Karaki wore her own much smaller poet's shirt and red leather pants with black shoes. As well as a red bandana over her forehead and hair. She even had a clip-on gold earring on her left ear. Suru was standing by, wearing a similar garb, but his pants were brown, and instead of a headband, he had a red cloth wrapped around his waist, which would flap in the wind. He also now used a cutlass instead of a katana, and he had 2 guns holstered on either side of his hips. Then there was Tsubu, who wore pretty much the same thing as Suru, but without the little red cloth or the weapons. Rough, take her over to the brig, Kaza ordered as she dropped Shinigami on the ground. Yo-Yo, get Lilith and tell her to come do her damn job. And Shift, make sure she doesn't do anything funny. Yes, Captain. Said all 3 crewmates. Karaki ran off, while Tsubu used his quirk, using the sand they kept in barrels on the deck. He made a giant sand hand, and used it to grab Shinigami, and carry her inside. For now, she went along without resisting. Whoever these people were, they were clearly part of something big. And she needed to find out what. Karai had expected this to be easy. It was 2 guards, all she had to do was take out 2 guards, free her friend, and get out. Only for her to discover that someone had gotten there first, that someone possessed a giant flying pirate ship. Which then proceed to open fire, unleashing hell on her from miles away, and forcing her to seek shelter behind a rock to keep from getting hit. Then when she came out, the ship disappeared, making her almost believe it was an illusion, if not for the flaming craters left in the ground. Nonetheless, she continued on her motorcycle, getting closer and closer to the truck. Only to see Shinigami laying outside the truck, looking very, very dead. Karai's eyes widened, and she swore her heart stopped for a second. She stopped the bike, and threw it to the side, running over to her friend's side, to see if this nightmare was truly real. At first, it seemed so, however, something was off. The smell. She smelled like paint. Karai squinted and touched Shinigami's face. It didn't feel like skin. It felt like she was touching a painting or a sculpture. This was not Shinigami. But why would her enemies leave such an obvious decoy to try and trick her? Karai's eyes widened, as now that she was thinking straight, she realized now how obvious this was, and got up to run. Kaboom! Only for the fake body to erupt in a massive explosion. Ack! Karai cried, as the explosion hit her hard in the back, knocking the window out of her, and sending her flying forward. Crack! Karai flew a few yards, before hitting the ground face first, and immediately falling unconscious. The brig was far nicer than the name implied. Shinigami was stuck in a small room with only a bed, but on the bright side, she was out of her full body restraints, although she still had restraints around her ankles and wrists. The bed was pretty soft, and they had the decency to give her some half-decent bread. Judging by this treatment, they don't seem to be as intimidating as they first seemed. Shinigami thought as she ate her piece of bread. Escape for now would be impossible. There were no windows, the vents were far too small to crawl through, and the room was made of rather sturdy metal. The door had the only slight opening, the bars would keep her from slipping through there. And the door itself didn't seem to have any locking mechanism she could pick or tamper with. She wasn't going to escape anytime soon thanks to a flaw in the room's design, so she would have to wait on her old friend, human error. Speaking of which, the door opened up, and Yoko walked in her new pirate attire. She wore a similar white top to Pai, but hers was a bit thinner, less puffy, and more see-through, and she also wore a small brown jacket over it, matching her brown pants and brown-heeled boots. Naturally, she was beautiful, but for whatever reason Shinigami couldn't help but find her the most attractive person she'd ever met. Wait. That's not right. I'd never find someone attractive based just on their looks. Shinigami immediately understood that she must be under the effect of a quirk, and resisted it with all her might. She closed her eyes and turned her head, cutting off the effect of Yoko's quirk. Oh dear, can't have that, no, can we? Yoko smirked and pulled out a syringe from her pocket. Guess we have to do this the hard way then. The next half hour is going to be very unpleasant for you, dear. Yoko jabbed the syringe into Shinigami's arm and injected her with a strange green liquid. What was that? What did you just Suddenly Shinigami's eyes opened, and she became unable to close them. Just something that makes it so you can't close your eyes for a little bit, dear. Yoko forced Shinigami's head towards her, making her unable to avoid being affected by Yoko's quirk. After all, it's rude not to look at the person you're talking to, and we have so much to discuss. She told me everything, Yoko said. She, Kaza, and Roru were all together, talking down to a seer which Izuku was communicating with. Roru now also sported more fitting clothes. A long black coat similar to Kaza but without slits, brown burlap pants, and brown boots. And you're certain it's accurate? Izuku asked her. As certain as can be. No one can lie to me after being exposed to my quirk for an hour. Yoko chuckled darkly. I even had her do a few things to prove her loyalty. I can show you if you'd like. No thank you, Izuku said bluntly. Anyway, your trap should buy some time. Raid as many foot facilities. Keep the destruction to a minimum, and steal as much as you can. If you get a hold of any of their scientific research or materials, or even their test subjects, inform me immediately. And what of the girl? Kaza asked with her arms crossed. Sell her to the villain trade, Izuku said dismissively. And don't take too long, the longer we wait, the longer our enemies have to move locations. Wait, the villain trade? Kaza asked, giving Izuku a questioning look. The fuck is the villain trade? Ask Suru, he should be able to tell you everything, Izuku told them. Goodbye. In the end, they decided to split up into two teams. Suru and Kaza would take an unconscious Shinigami to the villain trade, while the rest would start the raids on the foot hideouts. The two sky pirates walked through the halls of a dingy building, in the worst part of town, being escorted by two burly men in suits. While carrying Shinigami in a large gym bag. They reached a set of doors, which the men opened, leading them to carpeted office. In that office behind a nice wooden desk, was a rotund man in a sloppy suit, with a beard-mustache combo that just screamed ass. Shift. The man stood up and smiled at Suru. Long time no see. I see you have a new look, did you join some pirate-themed virginities? Villains actually. Kaza corrected. Is that a problem? The man laughed. No. Villains, heroes, vigilantes, it hardly matters to me. This here is Captain Windrake. Suru introduced her. She's our leader. And she's new to this system. Ah, I understand. The man nodded. Allow me to explain. The villain trade is a very simple business. You catch a villain, but instead of going to the police, you want to make a bit of cash. You bring them here, and we sell them to heroes who are less than skilled but make up for it with fat wallets. They get the glory, and we get the money. Win-win. How have the other heroes not found out about this? Kaza asked, not fully believing what she just heard. Oh, they have. They just don't do much about it. The man explained. Vigilantes often come here for cash and let the heroes claim the credit for villains they beat. This is good for the heroes because having vigilantes do their jobs for them is rather embarrassing. And can you imagine what would happen if the public found out about this? Ha! They'd be outraged. No. So long as we stay discreet, the heroes don't interfere. Mostly. Ugh, why am I even surprised? Kaza asked, before dropping the bag on the ground. Let's just get this over with. The man snapped his fingers, and a group of men came into the room. 2 men in white coats went down and opened the bag, revealing the unconscious Shinigami. The 2 looked over her, analyzing her while the last guy was on a tablet looking up information. Villain, Shinigami. B ranked. Known accomplice in the UA Sports Festival attack. The man with the tablet explained. She possesses a powerful illusion quirk. She's alive. In good condition too. One of the white-coated men said. No permanent injuries. Wonderful. I think this is the first time you've brought me a villain fully intact shift. The man laughed. An AB rank who participated in such an infamous event. With such an elusive quirk. This one will be quite valuable. Men. Preserve her. We're going to age her for about a year, and make her seem more elusive and hard to catch. Then we sell her off for triple the profit. Ahem. Kaza fake coughed threateningly. Our money. Ah, yes, I get ahead of myself. The man snapped his fingers again, and another man came in with a large briefcase. How does 1 million yen sound? Kaza took the suitcase and opened it, finding stacks and stacks of money inside, before closing it again. Fine. Shift, let's go. With that, the 2 turned around, and left the building, as quickly as they could. So, wanna explain yourself? Kaza asked Suru as they walked the streets. I needed to eat, Suru explained, looking slightly ashamed. Kaza sighed. Fair enough. Ah. Screams. Screams filled the halls of a foot laboratory. The screams of dirty pirates made of paint, and screams of the scientists and ninjas getting assaulted by said paint pirates. Gah! Shouted a ninja as he got rendered unconscious by a yo-yo to the face. Karaki and Tsubu casually walked through the chaotic halls of the laboratory, with 2 massive sand hands behind them, courtesy of Tsubu. They eventually reached a room with a safe in it. Crack. Karaki slammed her yo-yo into the keypad, destroying it instantly, and adding to her quirk's power. Crack. 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 Ting. Ting. Clang. Clang. Crunch. Thud. Karaki kept hitting the door with her yo-yo, over and over and over again, doing more and more damage to the door, until it burst through the doors completely. Inside, were dozens of cylinders full of a weird green and black glowing goo. Well, this seems important. Let's nick it. Karaki said with a wicked grin. Tsubu used his sand hands to grab all of the cylinders and bring them with them. Kaboom. 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 Meanwhile outside the cloud splitter was raining down fire on any vehicles trying to escape, while more painted pirates came down on ropes to make sure no stragglers could get through, while other pirates came up, passing up boxes of any valuables they could find. Pai was on the bridge, painting the chaotic scene in front of her with a wistful look on her face. Wonderful. I must immortalize this on my canvas. Everyone. We need to leave. The heroes are coming. Roro told everyone over his earpiece. With that, the first of many raids for the night came to an end. As the pirates retreated, leaving the fake paint pirates behind to watch over the ninjas and scientists and make sure they didn't escape or destroy incriminating evidence. So once the heroes came to check out the ruckus, they knew what to do. By the time the sun rose, all the cloud splitter was once again high in the sky, unreachable by most, and undetectable to all. All the sky pirates had regrouped and were now once again speaking to Izuku via the seer. So you managed to raid 15 out of the 72 bases we knew of. Izuku summed up. Sorry boss, but we just ran out of steam, Karaki answered. Shitsubu and Suru all looked extremely fatigued, and everyone else was at the very least, tired from being so active all night long. Although Kaza didn't seem fazed in the slightest. No, in all honesty, you did more than I expected, Izuku told them. Remember that you all are invaluable to me. If you feel like you're at your limit, stop. Not to mention being too prolific will only bring more attention from the heroes. So it's probably for the best that you stopped. Ah, thanks, boss, I think that's the kindest thing anyone's told me without being affected by my quirk, Yoko said honestly. That's sad. Karaki pointed out. So what did you take? Izuku asked. Did you get any mutagen? You mean that glowing goop stuff? Yeah, we got loads of it. Karaki said. I also managed to convince some of the captured scientists to write down what they've researched, and all that it entails, Yoku explained. We also managed to steal quite a few weapons, and drain some of their bank accounts, Roru explained. Excellent work everyone. I'll send you a location to drop off the notes and a few samples of the mutagen. Destroy the rest of the mutagen, and sell the rest of the stolen goods on the black market. Izuku instructed. After that, feel free to do whatever you please for the next few days. I'd say you've earned it. Will do, Kaza said as Izuku logged off. Alright, everyone rest, I'll wait for the boss to send us the drop-off location. You sure you don't need to rest, Captain? Yoko asked. I'll rest when the job is done, Kaza told them. Now get going, time's not something you can afford to waste. 2 days later, Izuku was in his office calling Nizu. Well, I think it's safe to say that so far the operation has been a resounding success, Nizu said. Now we've acquired a sample of the mutagen for analysis. Although it's a shame we can't send it to your lab without arousing suspicion from your staff. The head of my research branch is a very moral person, which is a good thing, but it can also lead to some issues. Izuku sighed. I feel dirty saying that. There is no person in power that gets to keep their hands clean forever, Nizu assured him. So long as you know where to draw the line, and make sure never to compromise on certain things. You say that, but I'm already compromising so much, Izuku said. At this point, I don't think I have to write to scold Yonda anymore. I wouldn't say that. You do these things because you have to, she does what she does because she enjoys the feeling of power. Nizu explained. If anything, I'm the one that can't claim the moral high ground here, I often do anyway, but that's because I'm a hypocrite. Speaking of Yonda. I was wondering if you had any interest in allowing her to intern at UA. She seems to have wonderful potential, but it seems like you're having difficulties with her. That's one way you could put it. Izuku massaged the bridge of his nose. Recently Shiroku's shown interest in becoming a hero as a side job, and Fu suspects she had something to do with it. I think I could give her some proper guidance, Nizu said, with a bit of glee in his voice. I'll think about it, Izuku said. By the way, did you transfer Zuko's sister yet? Of course. Can't have her staying in that area after what happened. Nizu said. The heroes are, well, they're having the expected reaction. That is to say, they are extremely confused, and concerned. Well, as long as they can't put together that I let them take the ship, then we're fine, Izuku said. None of them can reach the ship nor can they find it. And so long as you keep All Might away from them, we should have little issue. If they truly manage to defeat Ms. Jaga, then I believe you are correct, Nizu said. Let's hope they can continue to exceed our expectations. Kaza gave out a long yawn, as she finally awoke from her well-deserved nap. It had been 2 days since they'd given Izuku what he asked for and took their break, and she spent most of that time either sleeping or eating. So now that she was fully rested, what now? She sighed, got up, and stretched a bit. Guess I better go make sure everything's working well. Kaza didn't know exactly why Izuku assigned her as captain, and she didn't much care. She'd do the best she could to keep this literal ship afloat. For all their sakes. Speaking of which. What the fuck am I looking at? Kaza asked as she stood in the engine room. The engine room was one of the larger rooms on the ships. As it housed all the fractals that were used to give the ship its various abilities, as well as the things powering it. A chaos engine, and a pseudo-chaos emerald. This emerald wasn't like the other emerald, as it acted more as temporary storage for chaos energy, and wasn't fully charged and self-sufficient like the actual emerald. As one could imagine, seeing a giant, pulsating, glowing flesh egg where your engine is supposed to be, was a bit vexing. I have no idea. Roru stared at the whole mechanism in awe. I've spent nearly my whole life, studying machines. I was at the top of my class at every engineering class I have ever been to. I received offers from people around the world to work for them, and I have no idea what the fuck this is. Great, wonderful. The only mechanic on this whole ship has no idea how this ship works. Kaza sighed while massaging her temples. Just, great. Oh no, I can repair the ship for the most part. While the machinery is a bit foreign, I understand how it works. Roru explained. That egg things and these crystals give off unique energy, which is used to power the ship and its features. There's a lot more to it, but I doubt you'd care. I don't, thanks. So you can repair the ship? Kaza asked. That's what I just said. So long as none of the crystals or the egg thing get damaged. Roru told her. I have no idea how any of those things work, and even if I did, I don't think we have the necessary materials to replace them. Fortunately, this is the most heavily reinforced and guarded room on the whole ship. No one but All Might could possibly damage the engine room from the outside of the ship. And if we're fighting All Might, we're already thoroughly screwed. Well, you're not wrong. Kaza sighed. Fortunately, Nizu said we shouldn't have to worry about him. Yeah, man, it's so nice being not real villains. Roru chuckled. The next stop was the cafeteria/kitchen/food storage. Thankfully, there was a bit of food on the ship when they got it, so they'd been fine for the past few days, but of course, this was beginning to dwindle. Kaza sighed as she looked at the food supplies. Slam. Suddenly the door to the food storage as Tsubu and Karaki walked in. Time to eat. You too. Kaza barked, causing Tsubu to flinch and Karaki to raise an eyebrow. Want to explain why over half of our food is gone? Tsubu tried to explain himself nervously. At least having the decency to look ashamed. As opposed to Karaki, who looked slightly annoyed. We got hungry, so we ate. What do you want us to just not eat when we're hungry? That's pretty heartless considering all you did for the past 2 days was eat and sleep like a bear. Well, if that's your attitude, you better be prepared to do the shopping then, Kaza said, giving her tiny teammate an intimidating glare, that had little effect. You too, Yukog. I'm having Roru land the ship somewhere discreet, and you two are going to go out and buy food and supplies. Fine. Karaki shrugged. At least we can get some more booze. Not like it's the worst thing in the world. I am filled with hate. Karaki shouted as she was now on the bridge with Tsubu and Kaza, wearing a pink dress made for children. With little pink bows in her hair giving her pigtails. Tsubu was standing a respectable distance away, wearing a green hoodie and jeans. Does she really have to wear that? You two need to be disguised. Otherwise, you'll get caught. Kaza explained with a smirk, having enjoyed forcing Karaki into the outfit. People will be less likely to look at a father-daughter duo and think they're villains, so for once you being a loli is actually useful. Never. Get me out of this or so help Ilak. Karaki's protesting was interrupted, as Kaza's tail grabbed her by the neck, and lifted her to Kaza's face. Listen here you little shit. Kaza glared, letting a bit of fire come out of her mouth. You eat most of our food and drink most of the alcohol. You smell like shit because you almost never shower, you leave your clothes all around the damn ship, you never wash dishes, and you never clean after yourself. This, and fighting are the only thing you're useful for, and you will pull your fucking weight. Is that understood? Yes. Yes. I fucking get it. Ack. Karaki said while Kaza choked her. Kaza released Karaki from her grip and left Karaki gasping for air. Good. Ah. Where did you even get this damn thing? Karaki asked while rubbing her neck. Oh, that's mine, Yoko said. She had been sunbathing in a bikini off to the side. I accidentally packed some of my clothes from back when I was a kid. I didn't want to throw it out because that just seemed like a waste, especially when it's your size. Bitch. Karaki muttered while wondering what she'd do to get back at her later. Alright, listen up, here is what you two are going to do, Kaza said. You are a father and daughter. If anyone asks, she's 10. The mother is working overseas, you live uptown, and your names are Maki and Guy respectively. You're going to go to several stores, not just one, buying all that at once would be suspicious. Got it? Man, you really thought this out, huh? Tsubu noted. Someone has to, Kaza muttered. So we have a problem. Kaza was leaning in the doorway to Pai's room. Pai's room was probably the one with the most personality on the ship. It was covered with various paintings of monsters, ruined cities, and death. Currently, Pai was painting one of their recent attacks, their ship raining down fire on a building while people ran for their lives. And what would that be? Pai asked as she continued working on her art. I don't like you, Kaza admitted. I can't possibly understand how you could think death and destruction are beautiful. Pai sighed. Then it seems like we have a disagreement. So be it. Many people don't understand my art. At the very least you are honest about it. Yeah, but those people don't have to work with you, Kaza said. If we're gonna be teammates, we need to have some level of trust. Even if it's just a bit. Pai paused for a minute, before letting out a deep breath. Very well then. I will try to explain to you my muse, so long as you try to understand. I do not wish to waste my time, Captain. Good, neither do I. I'll try to be open-minded, but I can't promise I'll suddenly understand you or some shit, Kaza admitted honestly. That good for you? That's the best I can ask for, Pai said. Then let us begin. To explain my interests we must first go back to my early youth. When I was younger, I had a little brother. His name was Hametsu, and I adored him more than anything. We would play together in the gardens every day. We would use my quirk to create animals that we'd dance with together. It was a blissful time. However, as you are well aware, all good things must come to end, and my brother fell from the top of the stairs, ending his life in an instant. Pai sighed, but despite what she said she wore a small, sad smile on her face. No one came for a while. And I was too stunned to scream. It was like something had grabbed onto me, a feeling more powerful and intense than anything I had seen before, which had taken control of my mind, body, and soul. Soon I found myself moving without me commanding myself to move, and I was at my dead brother's side. I could not stop myself from memorizing every detail, despite how much agony it caused me. His blood painted the floor, and his once cheerful eyes, now glazed and lifeless. His once warm hands, now cold. He. To cause a surprise, Pi actually started to giggle a little bit. It's absurd, isn't it? How precious and how fragile human life is. We'd run up those stairs thousands of times. And yet just one mistake, and he was gone. It happened in an instant. We had so many plans. So many dreams. And in just a second all of that was gone. Because of a staircase. It felt like the world no longer made sense. Like I had lost my mind along with my brother. I honestly couldn't tell you what emotion I was feeling at the time. Grief, agony, sadness, anger. I can't say for sure it was any of those, just a tightening feeling of pain clouding my senses. Eventually, though, someone did find us, and I was taken away. But even then, all I could see was my brother. I had memorized every little detail of his corpse in my mind, so much so that I could tell what the morticians had changed when I next saw him. Although I paid little attention to it. With all the blood gone, I didn't just view him as my dead brother, but as my brother's corpse. As a symbol of the memories we shared. My brother was dead, yes. But those memories we shared, the bond we had, every word spoken, was immortalized, and set in stone. There I could see every memory we shared, leading up to his death, and I wondered what memories he had apart from me. And quickly I felt, at peace. The pain flew away, and soon I remembered the precious life we shared. I love my brother, nothing will ever change that. His dead body was a symbol of the life he'd lived, with me. That was my awakening. That was when I realized what beauty was to me. So you thought your dead brother's body was beautiful, because you saw it as a memento of your bond? Kaza asked, trying to understand this insane line of logic. Not just our bond. But of his life. The life I'd treasured so much. Pi exclaimed. I could see the story of his life unfold, begging to end, and I love it. Its ending caused me pain, but only because I loved the story so much, but of course, I could not view his corpse forever. But I still longed to see it. That was when I started to work on my first masterpiece. My brother's body. At first, I tried painting him from when he was at the funeral, but that body had too many alterations for my liking. So then I painted him from right after he fell down the stairs. It was good at first, but still, I thought I could improve. Perhaps take some creative liberties, and after much time, I created a masterpiece I have yet to outdo. My brother lied in my arms, as I kissed his forehead with a tear rolling down my eye, and a smile on my face. Many of our toys, drawings, and other things we held dear, were scattered about, covered in his blood. Completely symbolizing the life and death of my beloved brother. And everything he meant to me. It was only after I painted that, did I cry for the first time since his death. Tears of sadness, but also, tears of joy. Kaza was at a loss for words. She didn't know how to process any of what she just heard. Where were your parents during this? Grieving mostly, although when they did see my masterpiece, they were, not as enthusiastic as I, Pi explained with a sigh. That was when I first learned that many others would not view my art the same way I did. I tried to tell them this piece was a celebration of his life, but they could not view it as anything other than his death. They urged me to create pieces of when he was alive, but they just didn't feel as powerful. Painting of when we played together and when we ate together, could only show one moment of his life, maybe a bit more, but never the full story. Only my masterpiece could show that. The bond we shared, that death, powerful as it is, could never take away from us. But of course, an artist does not make one piece, and then never again. I needed to make more paintings that could capture that same sense of finality, grief, and completeness. That was when I started to see the art of destruction and death. When villains attacked, people would show their true colors in the face of such power, and when buildings were destroyed, you'd end of a history. Of a place where who knows how many people had lived or worked, and created wonderful memories, or terrible ones. I began searching up histories of places that were to be destroyed, or people that had just passed away, and trying to imprint their importance on paper. The end of a thing cements it signifies a beauty that surpasses all, in my opinion. That is why I am the way I am. That is my muse, my reason to live, until my own gorgeous end. So you went mad with grief? Kaza summarized after hearing all that. Perhaps, but I don't truly care if I am considered mad or not. What matters is immortalizing the beauty of life and death. Pi finished. So, Captain. Do you still dislike me and my art? No, Kaza answered eventually. I'm not gonna say I understand a thing about any of what you just said, and to be honest, I don't want to. But I get that you are not just some kind of sadist. Still think you're insane though. Better than most. Pi shrugged, looking pleased. You seem like you have a good head on your shoulders, Captain. I am glad Mr. Midoriya picked someone as diligent as you to lead us. A simple white round cartoon version of a man was standing against a yellow background, armless hands crossed and deadpanned expression on his face. In front of him was another cartoon man, this one sitting at a desk with a fedora on his head, looking mildly annoyed. Go ahead, Yaths, go on, give your opinion on Dragon World Omni. Said the narrator of the video, Yathzi Ravens Hank, speaking for the non-hatted man who was a stand-in for the audience. Go ahead, tear down a game made by literally abused children, we all know you want to. Yeah, so let's just get this out of the way now before you all raid my comments, toilet paper my house, tar and feather my family, and stone me to death in the town square. I don't think just because this game is made by children, means that it should be above criticism, Yahtzee said. Criticism isn't just a way for me maliciously attack shitty game develops with my razor-sharp tongue, it's also a way for them to learn on how to improve. If you only ever praise a child whenever they do something, they'll grow up to be a spoiled little asshole, with the personality of a rotten tomato, who's either going to be living off their parents like a very annoying leech that sucks money and energy instead of blood, or are going to in for a very harsh awakening later in life. So with that out of the way, what do I think of Dragon World Omni? It's fine, anticlimactic ain't it? Surprisingly enough, everything about this game is just fine. Nothing extraordinary, but nothing particularly bad, or even boring. I was mildly engaged throughout the whole thing, and nothing ever really took me out of the immersion. Suddenly a cartoon depiction of All Might appeared next to Yahtzee. The two looked at each other for a moment, before Yahtzee looked back at his screen and a forklift took All Might away. Almost nothing anyway. But we'll get to that. The story is as simple and basic as a story in a video game could get. You are someone summoned from another world, something you weebs should no doubt be more familiar with than your own feet, or the concept of deodorant, by a goddess who wants you to deal with the demon lord, help all the kingdoms, and solve the problems of everyone in the fucking world. You get a device that allows you to turn into dragons, you get a new dragon form after saving each kingdom, you recruit the generic anime lads and ladies, you defeat the demon lord done. As I said, it's almost painfully generic, but considering the developers, it was probably best that they didn't overcomplicate things. Because for all its fault, the plot still leaps and bounds above something like, say, Kingdom Hearts, which seemed to have been written using the monkey on a typewriter approach and is filled with more advertisements than any of the Lego movies somehow. However, it's the side quests is where the story writer gets to experiment a little. Many of the characters' actual backstories and development get shunted off into the side quest, and I'll be damned if I didn't find myself getting slightly attached. Not enough to actually finish all of them, but enough to the point where I didn't only remember their names whenever they were said in cutscenes, like half the games. Clearly, there was a lot of passion and effort put into each and every one of these side quests. I just can't figure out why these are side quests, to begin with. Speaking on the rest of Drake Domain everything, the gameplay in entertaining enough for an RPG more so than most AAA Tosh these days. In fact, I can say that about almost everything in this game. Despite the fact that it's a game made by children in less than a year, this game is far more memorable than half the first-party games released this year, because unlike them this game actually put some fucking effort into it. Yes, 1/3 of the side quests are filled with abusive parents and involved a character that no one was shocked to find out was a self-insert for the writer, but each of them actually felt like there was emotion put into them. The gameplay was clearly well-tuned, the world is intricate, the monsters aren't just fucking recolors of each other, and even the actual graphics and animation, despite being made in what should be the laziest way possible, had some fair share of effort placed into them. This game was a product put together with care, and carefully constructed, finished, and tested, before it was sent to the customers, something that should be the standard for the game industry but proves to be only a rarer and rarer sight these days as studios like Bethesda wonder if they can get away with releasing a game that's just a black screen with a logo for one of their IP plastered onto it. Regardless of the overall lack of wow factor, clearly the children who made did so with an actual understanding of what makes a game good, and a sense of integrity to now throw microtransactions, or lock content on the disc, or show the DLC before the game even came out or, I don't know, shoehorn All Might into the game and then plaster him everywhere in the advertisements. Yes, I believe it's time we finally addressed the blonde elephant in the room. They stuck All Might into the game. Yahtzee sighed. I'd like to believe that it was just because they're kids, and like almost everyone with a pulse, they thought All Might was cool. But given he's on the back of the box and comes immediately with a pre-order bonus, it's not hard to see that he was used to selling more copies. Regardless of the reason, this completely breaks the immersion. And yes, while I can just not use him or any of the special hero summons, that would be actively making the game harder, as they don't take up a slot on your regular party, but rather a separate special slot that will go empty if you don't use it. And since the game was designed around using this system, so if you want to skip out on it, I hope you like grinding for another hour to compensate. That blemish aside, Wyvern World Nom Nom is a good first attempt at game design, and gives me hope for future products made by the developers. Yahtzee finished. Although given the trajectory of most children who become game developers, they'll all either stick to making indie games for the rest of eternity that will go unnoticed by the rest of the world, or they'll sell their souls to one of the many gaming companies so they can all bow down and worship whoever the fuck invented the open world forever. We did it. Ken cheered, as he, the game dev team which consisted of Ken, Shiroku, Fuku, Fu, Kiba, Shina, Yami, Amai, Mu, and Alice, as well as Izuku all stood in one of the unused rooms filled with bowls of junk food, soda, and candy, as well as confetti being strewn about everywhere. Yeah. Everyone else cheered. The release of Dragon World Omni had been a huge success, to say the least, and as such, they were throwing a party to celebrate. Congratulations everyone. 2 million sold in just 4 days. Izuku congratulated them with a huge grin on his face. Words can't describe how proud I am of all of you. Most adults couldn't even do something like this, but you did it on your first try. I still can't believe they actually liked the characters I wrote, Fuku said with a blush and a small smile. They even said that the world design was good. Although that was most likely because of how good the graphics are. It doesn't matter if the graphics are good if the world is boring. Amai pointed out over video call. Don't put yourself down, Fuku, you did amazing work. Yeah, real life has amazing graphics, but you don't look at a branch and say, wow, that looks great. It has to be cool looking in the first place. Ken agreed, before turning to Izuku. Speaking of people we couldn't do this without, besides me, that is, free cheers for Izuku who bought everything we need, and brought us all together. Cheers. Everyone shouted, raising their cups, before taking a drink. Izuku just bushed and rubbed the back of his head. Oh come on guys, we're here to celebrate you guys and your hard work. The only thing I worked on in that regard was swiping my credit card. It was important I guess, but not very hard. So like Ken's job. Shiroku chuckled. Haha. Ken dry laughed before sticking his tongue out at her. Anyway, speaking of money, where is all the money we made? In your credit cards. Izuku smiled, before pulling out credit cards from his sleeve. Surprise. Awesome. Ken shouted as he and the others took their cards. I set everything up so it goes to all of you equally. Given how much money is in each of them, I don't think anyone should be complaining. Izuku explained. Just remember what I said about spending. The children took some time to admire their cards, before looking back up at Izuku, and then at each other. They all huddled up and started whispering about something, causing Izuku to give them a confused look. Eventually, they broke apart and came up to Izuku. We've decided, and we want you to take 50%, Ken explained. Izuku was a bit taken aback. 50%? Caretaker, to put it simply, we have no use for so much money. But you do. Kiba added. We are fully aware of how much money it takes to keep everything running, and how much money you spend to keep us all happy, so it would be rude of us not to give you at least that much. We're not taking no for an answer, Fu added. Izuku just stared at them, seeing if any of them would back down, but all he saw were the determined eyes of kids who wanted to pay back their benefactor. Alright, but this is just temporary, now come here. The green teen opened up his arms and kneeled down. Naturally, all the children piled in, for a nice big group hug. Alright, what's next? Ken asked. The next day, the entire dev team gathered in Ken's room for a meeting. As for the topic. What to do now? Alright, raise your hand if you have an idea for a game, Fu said. Fuku, Amai, Yami, Ken, and Kiba all raised their hands. Okay, how about this? First, we hear about all the ideas, then after seeing if they're good ideas, we can make a kind of priority list. For which games get the most focus and time spent on them. Fu said. Fuku, since you did the most work last time, let's hear your idea first. Okay. Fuku took a deep breath and got ready to explain while telling herself they wouldn't immediately hate it. So, I want to make a game, where you explore an alien planet. Okay, like, an entire planet? Fu asked. Like with cultures, and wildlife and all that? Yeah. I think it would be really cool to go to another planet and make all those new discoveries. Fuku said, getting more and more excited about it. You could learn languages, write down reports, take photos, and make new friends. Where's the action? Ken asked. Oh, well I guess there could be some combat stuff, but not a lot. I really want to focus on exploring a different planet. Fuku explained. That does sound really cool. Seeing things that no one has ever seen before. Alice gawked. What would people from a different planet wear? Shiroku wondered. I think that sounds like a good idea, but wouldn't that take a long time to make? Kiba asked. Something like that would have to take years at least. Right. Fu thought hard about what to do here. How about this? You and whoever else wants to work on it, can do it as a side project, and give it to us once you're done with all the concept stuff. Sound good? Everyone nodded, and Fuku breathed a sigh of relief that her idea hadn't been rejected outright. Ken, what's your idea? Fu asked. Okay, so hear me out, let's make a game about us. Ken offered, getting confused looks from everyone. Come on, think about it. Exciting stuff happens to us all the time, there would be a lot of playable characters and we can always add more whenever Izuku gets more kids. We can have special quests, it'll be awesome. I suppose you do have a point, getting to play as myself and my elite siblings is a fantastic selling point, Kiba admitted. But that also sounds very complicated, and we'd have to get permission for a lot of things. I'll ask Dad about it, and we can plan around it later, Fu said. Yami, what about you? Gant monsters protecting cities from other giant monsters, Yami explained simply. Clap. 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 Good idea, Yami. Amai praised as the whole room applauded. Why didn't I think of that? Giant monsters are awesome. Ken cheered. Alright, so I think we're all in agreement that should be a high priority. Fu asked, getting nods from the entire room. Alright, let's hear the rest. Kiba. I want to make a character action game about myself. Kiba stated proudly. Should have seen that coming, develop that idea a bit more, and then we'll talk about it more. Fu sighed. Amai, sorry to get to you last, but what was your idea? I want to make a fighting game, Amai said a bit bashfully. I don't really have any ideas for it outside of that, but I always really wanted to make a fighting game. Fu was about to speak when Ken snapped his fingers as an idea came to him. Why don't we make the fighting game about us? We can combine it with my idea. Does that sound good to you? Fu asked, and Amai enthusiastically nodded. Alright, how fast do you think we could make one of those? Well, I know fighting games inside and out, and we already know about us, so it shouldn't take too long, Amai explained. Although we should make sure the game plays well, I hate when games are rushed. Alright. Fu thought about it for a minute, before coming up with a plan. Okay. Fuku, Mu, Yami, and Alice, we don't really need you guys to help with the fighting game since it's based on us. So I want you guys to work on the monster game, and whatever Kiba comes up with for her game. For now, we'll focus on the fighting game. First, we'll need to figure out what areas we're gonna put the fighters in. Since the game is based on us, they should be places involving us. Like maybe some really nice looking places in the forest or underground or something. Ken, can you and Nara look around for places like that? Got it. Ken gave the thumbs up. I'll get everyone's permission to be in the game, and see if I can get some camera footage of us fighting so we'll know what moves to give everyone, Fu added. Other than that, we should be good. This is gonna be awesome. Ken cheered, getting everyone pumped up. Alright, everyone. Let's take a break for the next few days, then we can get back to work. Fu said. A week and a half later, Fu, Kiba, Ken, and Amai were all on video chat, with all their faces shuffled to the left of the screen, and in the middle was a big white space that they would draw on. Alright, did you get the character list we sent you and watch the videos? Fu asked. A few days ago, they sent her the list of people who would be in the game. Which included, Izuku, whether he wanted to be in or not, Barry, Kei, Fu and Kyosei, Kiba, Sansan, Shiroku, Yami, Otoko, Kai, Mu, Netsu, Ken and Nara in all of their forms, aka, Shina, the Cerberus Trio, Sori, Sai, Chol, Vera, Hada, Tokoshi, and Giza. Some of these characters would not necessarily have to be playable but would be in the game somehow. She had also been sent footage of almost all of them in combat. Yup, did you guys get the lists I sent you? Amai asked. She had sent them a list of fighting games to play, mainly Arc System Works games, as well as a list of fighting game terms so they didn't get confused during her explanation. They all nodded. Okay, so first let's start with Mr. Midoriya, Amai said. I think we should have Mr. Midoriya be a Shoto. Nothing really complicated or anything, just him using his staff and gun. Well, there's not really much we can do with Dad since he doesn't fight, so something basic and easy sounds good. Fu agreed. Caretaker should be as fair in combat, as he is in real life, Kiba added. Good. So next is Fu and Kyosei. Amai said. I think he should be kind of a zoner/grappler, using his tentacle things to grab and keep the opponent away or pin them down. But I had a really cool idea, instead of using super attacks with the meter, Fu can use the meter to regenerate health. And if he has a full 7 bars of meter, he can even come back to life after being KO'd, but only once. That sounds really annoying to play against. Ken pointed out. I thought that too, so I decided that to balance this, they also take more damage than everyone else, Amai explained. So Fu takes extra damage and just heals. Yeah, that sounds like Fu. Kiba said. Pretty accurate. Fu agreed. Let's do Lady Kiba next. Amai said. I think Lady Kiba should be a rushdown character with a unique meter. The blood meter. The more blood there is in the blood meter, the stronger Lady Kiba's attacks are. The blood meter goes down each time an opponent blocks or dodges one of her attacks, but it goes up every time you hit them. That does sound very accurate to my quirk, but wouldn't they just block until I'm weak? Kiba asked with a frown. That's why we should give her a lot of mix-up moves and unlockables, Amai explained. If you manage to outsmart your opponents you get rewarded with big damage, but if they outsmart you, they get rewarded perfectly fair character. That's better. I approve. Kiba said, giving a thumbs up. Great. Now let's get to Sansan. Sansan should be a grappler. Amai said. Grab people and hurt them with her acid. I don't think I could put in her usual hard-to-hit thing without making it too OP. It's too OP in real life so that makes sense. Fu nodded. Approved. Alright. Shiroku. Amai moved on. Ranged grappler, using her webs and spiders to stick and grab people from afar. Approved. Ken nodded. Yami, I think should be a puppet character, Amai explained. He'll summon and control Grim to fight for him and defend him. About what I expected. Fu nodded. Mu was hard, Amai admitted. But I think I came up with something good. So Mu's gonna be a bit of a weird grappler. He'll be in his little dimension during the beginning, and you can only hit him when he tries to attack you. That sounds interesting. Ken thought about it. Guess we can try it, and see what happens. Netsu was much easier, he should be a zoner, Amai said. But, he'll have 2 special mechanics. All of his moves can be charged. But he'll also have an oxygen meter. The more you attack, the more powerful attacks you use, the more the meter will go down, and when it gets lower, your attacks will have less power and range. So it's like me but ranged. Kiba frowned. Well, as the 2 with some of the rawest power, I think it makes sense. Sounds good to me, and that oxygen meter thing will help make him different from Heat Blast. Ken pointed out. Nice. So we can already use Ken's forms from the game he made, but for Nara, I don't think we should add gray matter, Amai admitted, getting nods of approval from everyone. Okay, Cannonbolt should be a heavy rushdown character, with lots of super armor and unlockables. He'll be easy to hit, but you need to be careful. Ken nodded. That's about right. Okay, XLR-8 should be a more standard rushdown character. They'll be super fast and really hard to punish, but their attacks will be really weak. Amai explained. Articuno should be a zoner that focuses on freezing the opponents, and Ditto should be a puppet fighter that uses their clones to attack. Diamond Head I think would be a good stance change character, one that can switch from a zoner mode to a Shoto mode. Humongoueur should be a grappler, with a unique super attack that uses the meter to make herself bigger and her attacks hit harder. Blocks and Lode Star should be zoners, and Wildvine should be a zoner/grappler hybrid. Everyone nodded, agreeing to everything as it all sounded good so far. Knees should be a zoner as well, although making a move set for her might be hard because I've never seen her fight, Amai admitted. Sheena did, so we can figure something out, Fu said. Oh, speaking of Sheena. I think she should be a stance change character, her quirk just has so much potential that I don't think on move set can do it justice. Amai said. It feels like every time I blink that quirk does something new, Kiba added. Well, have to ask her for a list. Please do, Amai asked politely. So the Cerberus trio. I think you should only play as one of them. You can select which one, and the other two will be used in her attacks, making them kind of a puppet character, but also a shoto because they won't be super reliant on the puppets. Pretty accurate. Fu nodded. Ms. Jaga should be a rushdown character, but a lot more basic than Lady Kiba or XLR8, Amai said. Can be a zoner, Mr. Haddock can be a shoto, Mr. Tokoshi can be a grappler, and Mr. Giza can be a stance change character that can switch between all kinds of martial arts styles and moves. That all sounds cool, but what about characters like Eri, Kei, Otoko, Kai, Vera, and the other people who don't really fight? Fu asked. Well, I was thinking we can add them in with the assist mechanic, Amai said. So basically, you can pick a character to assist your main fighter. Eri can heal people, and Kai can do an attack. Things like that. Alright, that sounds good. Oh, by the way, sorry to surprise you with this, but Yonda wants to be in the game as a fighter too, Fu revealed. Everyone gave him confused looks. But Yonda doesn't fight? Ken pointed out. Fu sighed. Well, that might not be true anymore. Giza was sitting in his room, enjoying his favorite show, with his baby turtles watching alongside him. Knock knock knock. Come in Kiba, Giza said, without looking away from the TV. Kiba entered with a confused expression. How did you dash? You are the only person here that knocks that loud, Giza explained, before pausing his show and turning to Kiba. Now, what can I do for you, young lady? I want to see you fight Sori. Kiba requested somewhat sheepishly. Is there a reason, or is it simply for pure spectacle? Giza asked curiously. I want to learn, Kiba explained simply. Very well. Giza accepted, before turning back to the TV. Once this episode finishes. Getting Sori to agree had been exceedingly simple, and after a few minutes, Giza and Sori were facing off outside in the forest. On the side, Kiba was watching the two intently. Are you ready? Sori asked, getting into a battle-ready stance, while Giza stood calmly with his hands behind his back. Yes, let us begin, Giza said. Come. And thus the battle began with a bang. Shum. Sori burst toward Giza at explosive speeds and aimed a kick right at Giza's face, which he dodged by ducking down and sweeping Sori's leg, causing her to fall to the ground. Before Giza could capitalize, Sori rolled back onto all fours and pounced at him. Giza quickly fell back onto his hands, and as Sori flew over him, he pushed himself up, spun around, and kicked Sori in the side, sending her flying to the left towards Kiba. Sori flipped in the air, once again landing on all fours, as she dug her claws into the dirt, slowing her until she stopped a few feet in front of Kiba. Heh. Slippery bastard. Sori smirked. Shum. Once again, Sori shot out like a bullet, straight toward Giza. Sori tried to punch Giza, unleashing a shallow punch which he dodged by tilting her head to the side and then unleashing another one before he could react, which he dodged by ducking, and as Sori tried to knee him but he backflipped away. But Sori was right on him the moment he got to his feet. Sori was on his tail, literally, she stepped on his tail, keeping him in place. Sori launched a heavy punch at Giza's chest, but Giza moved to the side and did a double spin kick hitting Sori right in the side and sending her stumbling off his tail. Alright, let's see if you can keep up. Sori challenged, before jumping back. Then she literally started running circles around Giza at top speed, too many, and in fact, to Giza, she was almost a blur, impossible for his eyes to keep up with. So he didn't bother trying. He didn't need to anyway, honestly he was almost offended she thought this would work on him. He closed his eyes and focused on his hearing. Pat 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 pat. He listened closely to her rapid footsteps, because the moment he heard the signal, he had to act. Pat 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 pat, fifth. There it was, the sound of sliding dirt. The signal of a predator about to pounce. Sori dashed at him from his upper left, hoping to ambush him after he lost track of her. But there was one issue. He never lost track of her. Giza shifted his body, dodging the attack, and in the same motion, threw her over his shoulder, using the speed of her attack to toss her into the air. Sori spun wildly in the air, flying higher and higher, until she went down, into the nearby trees, out of sight. He's so much weaker and slower than her, but he's still keeping her away. Kiba noted, seriously impressed by Giza's skill. She was faster and stronger than Sori, yet even at her peak, she could never touch Sori. In fact, this fight was kinda reminding her of her own fight with Sori, but in reverse, and Sori wasn't taking nearly as much damage as she had. The area went quiet for a little while. Sori was nowhere to be found, and Giza was completely still, standing still in the middle of the clearing, his eyes still closed. And then, a barrage of rocks flew out from trees, heading at Giza like they were launched from a weapon rather than thrown. Giza easily batted them away with a single arm, knocking away over a dozen stones in a matter of seconds. And that's when Sori came dashing at him from the opposite side on all fours, coming in low to grab his leg. However, Giza jumped over her swipe and kicked off her face into the air. Sori quickly recovered from the kick to the face, and pounced towards Giza, swiping at him mid-air, but Giza flipped his body backward, avoiding the blow, and then quickly threw some dirt he'd collected right into her eyes. Hiss! Sori cried as the dirt got into her eyes, blinding her. Gah! Giza kicked her in the head, sending her to the ground, sliding on her back across the dirt, while Giza landed safely on his feet. Sori flipped and landed on all fours, her eyes closed as that dirt attack had done more damage than any of his actual blows. But she could still easily overcome it. She stayed on all fours, and with her eyes closed, she charged at Giza. Sori swiped at Giza's legs, but with some fancy footwork, all while taking aim to try and kick her in the face, but she dodged each attack right back. This continued for a little while, neither two being able to hit the other, until eventually, Giza landed a kick to the face, which she tanked, and grabbed onto his foot. Sori immediately dragged Giza down, while jumping onto him, pinning him to the ground with her claws at his neck. Gotcha! Sori smirked, tail wagging happily in victory. Yes, I suppose this your win. Giza said, not seeming at all surprised. I thank you for your time. Please, head back to the manor, and fix yourself up. Yeah, gotta get my eyes checked after that dirty trick, Sori said, rubbing her irritated eyes. See ya. Have fun, Lady K. So you couldn't win, Kiba noted with a frown. Of course, I couldn't, Giza said, as he pulled himself up and dusted off his robe. No matter how much skill one has, you cannot defeat a mountain by punching it. Or in simpler terms, at a certain level, the skill becomes less important than power in battles. Which is why I would never engage Sori in such a battle under normal circumstances. Still, lasting that long against her was very impressive. Kiba pointed out. If I had your skills, with my power, I would be undefeatable. No one is undefeatable, Giza warned her. The moment one thinks themselves invincible is the moment they cement their own downfall. But yes, you would be an extremely formidable opponent. Was this your way of asking me to train you? Kiba nodded and looked down at the ground, her fist tightly clenched. So many people keep attacking us because of a stupid reason. I know I'm strong, but the people attacking us are even stronger. Like that lady who made me turn into that thing. Ah, you're referring to your unrestrained form. Giza mused. Yes, I was told about that. I suspect that even I would struggle to handle you in such a form. And Sori would likely be killed outright. A truly formidable power. I can tell that you have some negative feelings attached to that form. So I will leave my musing at that for now. But as for training, I will be more than happy to assist you. I owe your father a rather sizable debt after all. We will have to schedule it with my 2 other students, aka, and Yonda. Kiba raised an eyebrow. That's right, I heard that Yonda was learning to fight. What does that look like? Now, when Giza had been told to give Yonda combat lessons, he'd been expecting mainly hand-to-hand. Maybe they'd use a wooden knife. He did not expect Yonda to be walking in, with a giant pink hammer. The top of the hammer was very nearly as tall and just about as wide as Yonda's entire body. The center was covered in a wood coating, but the ends were pure metal, with mechanisms inside them. The pole was made of metal, with a comfortable grip that Yonda was holding. And the whole thing was painted pink and purple. How exactly are you holding that hammer? Giza asked. Anti-gravity wood. Yonda answered. Do you like my creation? I worked on it with the scientist at the lab. And by that I mean I told them what I wanted, and they made it. I call it the headache. Apt name. Giza thought. So this is the weapon you wish to use? From the looks of it, that is no normal hammer. Aha. Cover your ears. Yonda gave a wicked smirk, as she raised her hammer over her head. Gong. The hammer smashed into the ground, unleashing a blast of deafening sound around her. Giza could barely keep himself from falling over as he was overwhelmed by the sheer wave of sound, and all he could hear was a ringing in his now bleeding ears. It's even stronger than I thought it would be. Yonda said, very pleased, and unaffected by the sound. Well, this is going to be pleasant. Giza sighed. Thank you for coming, Mr. Midoriya, Uchi said, as she guided Izuku through the halls of the new botanic research station. Rather than share a lab with everyone else, Izuku had given Uchi and those under her a lab all to their own, allowing Project Seed to expand far beyond its original scope. You don't need to be like that, if anything I should be thankful for all the work you and your sisters have done here, Izuku said, as they reached a set of doors. Now, please show me what you've made. They went through the doors and entered the first research chamber. Inside was an observation room, overlooking an outdoor testing room with a huge tree in the center. The tree was easily the size of a building and had large vines hanging down from it. In the observation room itself, was a small table, with a fruit. It was red like an apple but shaped like an orange, only with a bunch of pointy bumps on it. Not pointy enough to hurt, but enough to make it look odd. This is the most noteworthy of our research, is the tree of might, as well as the fruit of might, Uchi explained. The fruit from the tree of might, has an astronomical power, to enhance all of one's natural abilities sharply. Like trigger? Izuku asked, taking a closer look at the fruit. Uchi shook her head. While it possesses similar strengthening effects, it doesn't lower one's sense of reasoning, in fact, it increases a person's mental facilities to the same extent. It's a far better strengthening tool, however it does have one downside. Its effects only last for about 30 minutes. Once that time expires, your body will go back to its normal capabilities. An issue with that is, you've just been going past your normal capabilities for half an hour. Ah, so the amount of energy and the strain you've been putting on your body catches up with you. Izuku finished. Is it fatal? Not if you only eat one, Uchi explained. Eating one will mainly just cause exhaustion and maybe some mild damage to your body. You'll pass out and wake up just fine, with no permanent injuries. If you were to eat more than one, well, it gets worse with each fruit eaten. And the results could easily be fatal. Hm. Well, this was never going to be put out for the public anyway, ignoring the side effects, it's just too dangerous. Izuku said, setting the fruit down. This will go out to the military and the HPSC. Understood, sir, Uchi said, as she started walking towards the opposite door. Now let us move on to our next item. The rest of the tour had been equally as fruitful. Golden peaches filled with more nutrients than any naturally grown fruit. Lemons that gave off juice which would kill germs. And this is our last stop, Uchi explained, as she brought Izuku to one last examination room. Inside on a small table, was a small flower, and 2 sets of ear muffs. Now it looks completely ordinary, however, that is to our benefit, Uchi said as they walked over to the table. She then handed Izuku a pair of ear muffs. Please put these on. Izuku put on the ear muffs, and then, Uchi pressed down on the flower. Rii! The flower shrieked loudly, so much so that Izuku could hear it through the ear muffs. Uchi moved her hand away from the flower, and the shrieking stopped. The 2 of them took off the ear muffs, and Uchi began her explanation. These are called shrieking violets. If a significant amount of force is applied to the petals, the flower will unleash an ear-piercing scream. Currently, it's a bit too loud for my liking, however, with a bit of work this could be used as a sort of alarm system. Interesting, plant some at the edge of the property, I think they'll be useful in alerting the Grim, Izuku ordered. And keep up the good work. Izuku's next stop was at the main lab. He was currently in an observation chamber, overlooking another room, with a large machine at its center. Sir, you're going to be blown away. Futaba said, standing next to him, holding a remote in her hand. We've finally done it. After so much hard work and confusion, we've finally opened a portal into the cognitive world. Show me, Izuku said. You bet. Just wait a second. Futaba said, before pressing down in her earpiece. Bring in the drone. The door to the chest chamber opened, and some staff bots came in and set down a small drone. Once they left, the lights dimmed, and the sounds of machines coming to life could be heard. WRRRR. After a few moments of this, a small tear opened up in the air, and expanded slightly, until it was about the size of his hand. Immediately the tear began sucking in air like a vacuum, and the drone was immediately sucked in. A TV screen turned on in the observation chamber, showing what the drone was recording. It looked very reminiscent of space, a black void filled with small star-like lights. The only difference was that there were small string-like lines connecting them all to each other. What I think we're currently looking at, is what we've called the collective unconsciousness. A metaverse intertwined with our own universe, that houses and connects the consciousness of all intelligent life. Futaba explained with a look of pure enrapture awe. Those lights are most likely the minds of every living being on Earth, and maybe even beyond that. And the entire dimension is filled with chaos energy. More so than anything we've registered so far. Even the chaos emeralds can't compete. It's comparing a pool to the ocean, or something greater. This is everything my mother worked towards. It really is fascinating. Izuku agreed. I wonder if chaos energy has always been there, if it was there long before the dawn of quirks. WRRRR. Suddenly the chamber began flashing red, and the machinery started shutting down. The tear in reality sealed, and the drone's footage turned to static. What happened? Izuku asked, snapped out of his awe by the alarming set of events. Futaba sighed. That's just the alarm system and emergency shutdown. Like I said, the place is full of chaos energy, which also means when we open a tear there, it leaks an alarming amount of chaos energy. So we can't keep the portal open for very long without risking the possibility of something unwanted happening. The red lights just mean that the chamber is currently too irradiated for any organic life to tolerate. And you're sure this is safe? Izuku asked her. No horrible monsters can come out from the portal and kill us all. No sort of bacteria we won't be able to handle, nothing like that. The room is sealed shut, and has every kind of sensor you could imagine, Futaba explained. Don't worry boss, we're taking every possible precaution. We're not like those idiot smart guys in the movies. We're not gonna start the apocalypse, probably. Izuku sighed. I guess I'll just have to trust in you. Speaking of trust, I've heard you've been working with Dr. Nejuru. Oh yeah, he's one of those guys Dr. Hikari recruited, definitely a smart cookie, Futaba said. He seemed really eager about the project. Well, there may be a reason for that. Izuku sighed. I believe it's time I confronted him about his activities. To think that Dr. Hikari would contact me again. I thought I'd burned that bridge after my arrest, but it seems he's far more forgiving than he thought. Either that or he is in desperate need of my talents. He invited me to join the Midoriya Foundation's scientific research branch. What interested me was that he said something about a new energy, and that he couldn't go into detail over the phone. Naturally, this made me curious, not that I was going to refuse an opportunity for work given my current lack of funds. He also told me to be very careful about how I behaved, as Mr. Midoriya is aware of my foreign fugitive status, and he's currently in an extremely paranoid state due to the various attacks by quirkless idiots. This makes me wonder why he agreed to me being hired in the first place, but again, I'm not one to look a gift horse in the mouth. Chaos energy. Believe it or not, I have actually encountered this energy before, but it was so weakened and diluted that I didn't truly understand it. This is the discovery of the century. With this, so much is possible. Things that I once could have only dreamed of are now within my grasp. And to think the government dismissed this. Ha! They always have been blind to the beauty of science and its infinite potential. And now they're finally paying for it. We're only just delving into the endless potential of chaos energy, not even scratching the surface. But already I can tell that this will be the discovery that will make my wish a reality. Dr. Zeno Nejiru will create a superhero. The first big hurdle toward my goals has already been overcome. Normally metal is unable to properly utilize the true power of chaos energy. Only being able to harness its raw power, and not its more fantastic abilities. It seems like chaos energy is more compatible with organic substances. With that in mind, we quickly came up with the solution to use cactus metal. You see, they've been experimenting with plants and chaos energy, very interesting stuff I'll have to look into later, but for now, what's important is that it created a cactus made of something very similar to metal, but is still completely organic. With this, we can make machines capable of using the power of quirks. However, this metal is not the strongest. It's quite strong, however, it doesn't match up to the strongest metals, and it has a weakness to small pointed objects. Like bullets. I'll need to find a way to either use chaos energy to strengthen them or perhaps merge it with other metals while retaining its ability to make use of chaos energy, or both. Actually both sound best. Well, that was simple. So long as the cactus metal, we must find a better name for that, is integrated into the machine on a broad level, then you can use as much regular metal as you wish. Now that that problem's been solved, I have a new one. I need to acquire a Chaos Emerald. The Chaos Emeralds are pure and seemingly infinite pools of chaos energy, power on an unimaginable scale. Nothing else will do, my creations must make use of the Chaos Emerald. Only issue is, there is no way I'll get permission to use it. The Chaos Emerald is the most protected object in the laboratory. Not just anyone can use it. I'd have to build up trust for years before I could even ask. Obviously, I'm not going to wait that long. So I have two options. 1. Create an emerald myself. Or 2. Show them my project and hope it impresses them so much they'd be willing to take the risk. Overall, number 1 is more difficult but less risky. So I think I'll go with that. Now, I just have to figure out how to create a source of near unlimited power. Child's play. I wrote child's play sarcastically, but it was actually far easier than I imagined. Analyzing the fractals told me most of what I needed to know, and spying on a bit of Dr. Jiken's blueprints told me the rest. However, I've once again reached a wall that has blocked my time, and time again. Money. Even with my generous salary, buying the materials needed to actually create a Chaos Emerald would take too long. And that's not even counting the time I'd need to spend charging the thing. Damn it, I need to figure something out quick. My good fortune continues. Recently the lab has ordered quite a lot of the materials needed to create Chaos Emeralds. Most likely to create Chaos Emeralds. So I just simply asked for the materials, and they gave them to me. I didn't ask for them all at once as to avert suspicion, but still, I didn't think it would be that easy. They must not suspect I'm going to create my own Chaos Emerald. I'm a bit insulted, but I'll look past it. Now the other issue is charging the emerald. It takes half a year to fully charge a Chaos Emerald. I could likely charge it faster by using multiple Chaos engines, however, that would still take too long and draw too much attention. I must find another way. Once again my luck has truly shined. As it turns out, this lab is also doing research into opening portals in the cognitive realm. If I had to find something that could surpass the Chaos Emerald, it would be another dimension housing the collective consciousness of all mankind. If I could find some way to open a portal into the cognitive realm and siphon its energy into my own Chaos Emerald, then I could charge it near instantly. And so I signed up for Project Special Rend. Not only will this bring me closer to my own goal, but it will assist the Foundation as well. How generous I am. This project has proven to be one of the most intellectually challenging experiences I've ever indulged in. If only because it's not fully within my area of expertise. Although from what it looks like, opening a hole through dimensions seems to be no one's area of expertise. It feels like we've been going in circles over and over again. But my luck has not abandoned me. Professor Hada knows some people with connections to the Auther Foundation. A place that has done extensive research into tearing holes through dimensions. And he's offered to acquire some of their notes. Although it's unknown how successful they were. It should at the least be helpful. As it turns out, those research notes were more than useful. They were invaluable. I'm starting to suspect that the Auther Foundation actually did make a portal to another dimension. Dr. Akira and I have taken to these notes like a fish in water, and using our combined expertise, we've already created a prototype. We'll be testing it soon. The tests were successful. After modifying the power output, and making use of that fractal sword, we've created a portal. Currently, it's only about as large as my palm, and at first, I thought we created a portal to space. The moment it opened, it started sucking everything inside like a vacuum. After we managed to get that issue under control, and peeked inside, it seemed even more like we'd opened a gate into space. It was a completely black void, with lights that glowed just like stars glittered across it. However, what quickly tipped us off that this was not in fact space, was the glowing string-like lines that connected all of the stars. We quickly had to close the portal once more, as it was leaking chaos energy on a scale 10 times that of a chaos engine. It's everything I could have hoped for. I'm taking a risk. I have to time this just right. The best way to charge the Chaos Emerald is to simply send it directly into cognitive space. Due to the massive amounts of chaos energy that exist in the cognitive space, I'll be able to charge the emerald in a matter of minutes. Only issue is if I leave it in there for just a minute too long, it may risk overcharging the emerald, leading it to detonate. And I doubt they'll give the materials again if I don't have anything to show for it. I must get this right. Success. I finally have a fully charged Chaos Emerald. The hardest obstacle has finally been overcome, the time for my dreams to come true is near. Part of me feels bad for doing all this behind everyone's back, but they'll understand once my project is complete. The first thing I have to do is create an artificial body that can house the power of a Chaos Emerald. Normally, this would be almost impossible, however with the help of reinforcement fractal, I was able to finally create a body that could withstand the overwhelming power of the emerald, well for the most part. While the body doesn't explode, most of the internal circuitry fries almost immediately. So close, yet so far. I must admit this was a quite frustrating endeavor. However, I've finally found a solution. Using similar materials that make up the fractals, I made more agreeable circuitry in hardware, as well as the addition of an exhaust feature. With this, I'm yet another step closer. I suppose it's time I've given my creation its name. Soon you will be born, Gamma. I just discovered something that could change the very nature of science. As I was working on Gamma's software, I found that something was already there. It was like the basic framework for a human mind. Like a baby developing in the womb. The emerald was behind this. I took a closer look at the emerald, and after extensive searching, I found something: information. Information on how to create a consciousness. Something you'd only see in a reproductive cell. Could it be that chaos energy is the key to human consciousness? Has chaos energy always been intertwined with human consciousness? And if so, why is it only in these past few 100 years has it led to the development of quirks? Questions for later. What I do know is that this is yet another stroke of luck. It's almost as if some higher power has been guiding me this whole time. Wait. Midoriya was smarter than I gave him credit for. He was perfectly aware of everything I'd been doing and had allowed me to get this far. I was brought in for questioning by him and his guards, and my work was exposed to the rest of the lab staff. At first, I thought I was done for, but surprisingly, especially given his situation, Midoriya was very understanding. He allowed me to explain my reasons for what I was doing, and listened to everything I said. In the end, he said I would be allowed to continue Project Superhero, but it would be an official project, and I would be heavily monitored. Not only that, but Gamma was placed into storage, as was the Chaos Emerald I'd made. Mr. Midoriya said the world was not ready for something that powerful just yet, and that development on Gamma would be on hold. At the very least he wasn't destroyed, and Mr. Midoriya gave us a task that was quite interesting and might serve as a decent replacement. Create a fractal that could wield the quirk of All Might and Ochiko Uraraka. Who seem to share a quirk. Perhaps they're distant relatives. Mr. Midoriya told me not to ask any questions in that regard, and given that I'm on thin ice, I think I'll focus on other things. It's astounding. After doing some analysis of the chaos energy found in both All Might and Uravity's DNA, I found an entire network of information, as well as different types of chaos energies that gave off brainwaves. We were unable to recreate such things in the fractals, however. At first, using the normal method for giving a fractal a particular quirk seemed to not work with All Might and Uravity's quirk. We got some fractals that could recreate the zero gravity, but nothing else. That was until we found that those fractals had an increased capacity for chaos energy. Not as much as the emeralds or even All Might and Uravity's original quirk, but it's still quite a bit. It will make a good power source for my new creations Gamma 1 and 2. As for the original Gamma, I've renamed him, Gamma 0, for now. Don't worry Zero, one day you'll be completed. It was a beautiful day outside. The skies were mostly clear with just a few clouds running along them, and the sun shining down. The weather was warm, not too hot, not too cold, just warm. A perfect day for Fuku to hold herself up inside, at least that's what she would normally do on a day like this. But today was different. Because today, she was having a picnic. She, Kei, Kyoko, Otoko, Nara, and Alice had decided to go on a picnic, with Mina acting as their supervisor. Fuku spent all of the early morning, preparing food, while the others got everything else ready. By about 12 o'clock, all of them were gathered by the entrance, ready to go. Alright, do we have everything? Mina asked the kids. Food? Check. Kei said, pointing at Otoko who was carrying 2 big baskets full of food. Blankets? Mina asked. Got it, Nara said, holding up a basket with blankets in it. Alright, let's go. Mina said. Yeah. It didn't take them long to find a place to set down. Nara knew all the best spots, given that she ran around the forest as XLR8 plenty of times. They set up in a large clearing, near a mid-sized lake. Since they weren't quite ready for lunch yet, they decided to pass the time with some games. Catch! Mina said as she threw a frisbee over to Kei, who caught it enthusiastically. Got it. Nara catch! Kei said as she threw the frisbee over to Nara. While everyone else played over in the sun, in the shade were Otoko and Fuku, relaxing on the blanket. Fuku was drawing out the scene in front of her, trying to immortalize today in paper, while Otoko watched. Fuku suddenly felt a tap on her shoulder, and looked behind her, to see Otoko had poked her with a stick. Once he had gotten her attention, he picked up a notepad that said, "You're really good at drawing." "Oh. Thank you." Fuku blushed. Even after all this time she still wasn't used to praise. "I heard you like to draw too. Can I see?" Otoko paused, before picking up another book, and opening it, showing her one of his drawings. It was childish. Which was to be expected. Otoko had, like Fuku, attempted to draw the scene in front of them. His drawings of people weren't stuck figures, rather they were what one would imagine a child's first attempt at drawing people seriously was. The same went for the trees, and the sun. All of it was an amendment attempt at complexity, but it was unfinished. It was very apparent that for whatever reason, Otoko had stopped drawing halfway through. Fuku frowned. For whatever reason, she got a deep feeling of déjà vu when she looked at this drawing and she didn't like it. "Why did you stop? You were doing really well." Otoko shook his head and wrote something down. "Not as good as yours." Fuku's frown deepened. Now she knew where that feeling came from. No. A younger Fuku pouted back in her room in her father's house. She was looking down at an unfinished drawing of herself. The paper was darkened, as Fuku has erased her previous drawings many, many times. Fuku liked to draw. Mostly because she didn't have much else to do. And she wanted to make prettier drawings, like the paintings put up in the mansion. But she just couldn't manage it. Every time she would just mess something up, and it never looked anything like how she wanted it to. Once again she erased her drawing, wiping away tears of frustration to keep them from falling on the paper. Honestly, she was unsure if this was even worth it anymore. But, what else would she do? And so, she went back to work. She'd try, and try, and try until she got it right. If she could ever get it right. Fuku shook her head, trying to suppress the memory once more, before getting back to the conversation. "I don't think you should give up so easily. Why don't I show you how to draw? But, on something simpler, like a flower." Otoko paused for a second to contemplate, before writing down, "Okay. Good. Alright now, let's find a flower." Fuku stood up and looked around the area for a flower. Only to find, that there were none around. This had been one of the many areas that had been destroyed and reconstructed. As such, while the trees and grass had been replanted and grown, the flowers and other such things had not had enough time to spout. "Oh, maybe there are some nearby," Fuku said, although she looked rather hesitant to go looking around the forest. Miss Mina?" Mina looked over to Fuku, only to get hit with a frisbee in the head. "Ow!" Fuku gasped. "I'm sorry." "Ah, it's fine," Mina said, walking over to the two of them while rubbing the side of her head. "What's up?" Thankfully, Otoko decided to do the talking, or rather, writing. "We want to look for a flower to draw. But there aren't any here. Can we look in the forest?" "Sure." Mina clapped her hands, and a few Beowulfs came into the clearing. "Guard the kids while they look for flowers." "Okay." The Grimm turned to the children, ready to go. "Thank you," Fuku said, standing up and giving Mina a bow, Otoko doing the same, before they both departed into the woods, with the Grimm in tow. It didn't take long for them to eventually find a flower. They arrived at a small pond, where they found a water iris. "Alright, we found one," Fuku said with elation, as she ducked down and pulled out her notepad. "Okay, now just, Despite saying she was going to show him how to draw, Fuku herself didn't really know how to teach. "Just, watch me, okay," Fuku instructed, getting a nod from the older boy. Fuku then started making a trace drawing of the flower, trying to ignore the pressure of being watched, while the Grimm watched them from behind. Things were actually going rather smoothly, until... Snap! EAP. Fuku jumped up in surprise and had to make an effort to hold in her quirk. Jrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr It was then that a small black bear cub. Rah! Immediately the Beowulfs jumped onto the cub, pinning it down to the ground. Rah! Rah! The bear cried out in a panic, as it struggled and squirmed in a fruitless attempt to escape. Ah! Wait, no, let it go, it's only a baby. Let it go. Let it go. Fuku ordered in a panic, trying her hardest to not release her gas. As per order, the Grim released the cub, and it quickly ran over to Fuku. Ha! Fuku gasped in shock as the bear ran behind her, hiding from the two Grim, and cuddling against her leg. Eh! Now Fuku was more shocked than scared. She almost released her gas for a second, but she quickly put up her guard, and kept it from escaping. Rah! Rah! The cub cried. What's going on? Fuku shouted in confusion. She could feel it, her gas was just about to release. And then she looked down at its face. Its little snout, its pleading eyes. It was so cute. Hey there, little guy. Fuku hesitantly patted the cub's head. Please don't call your mama and kill us. Bitch. The cub cried as it rubbed its head on Fuku's leg. What am I supposed to do here? Fuku asked, looking up at Otoko. Otoko shrugged. That's not helping. Fuku's scream whispered. Jarrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr "Arr." The cub groaned, obviously hungry, and seemingly looking to Fuku for food. Ah. Fuku racked her brain on what to do, and could only come up with one possible solution. "So you took the bear back here?" Mina surmised. Fuku had in fact taken the bear cub back to the camp. The cub in question was currently sitting on Fuku's lap, eating a sandwich out of her hand. "It's so cute." Kay squealed. "It's unbearable." "Are we sure it's safe?" Alice asked, hiding behind Nara. She shrugged and looked down at her Omnitrix, making sure she'd be able to reach it quickly just in case. "So what do we do now?" Fuku asked as the bear continued. "Well, we should probably return this little guy to his parents," Mina said. "Kyoku, would mind peering into his memories so we can find his family?" Kyoku nodded, and went over to the bear, approaching it cautiously. The bear whined a bit and tilted its head back away in fear, but Fuku started petting them, putting them at ease and allowing Kyoku to put her hands on its head and activate her quirk. After a few minutes, Kyoku took her hands off its head and turned to Mina with a frown. "They're dead. They were killed by wolves." "Ah, that makes things a bit complicated." Mina winced, as she knew there was no way she could let something so cute wander off and become food for the other animals in the forest. Ah. Mina racked her brain until she came up with the only possible solution she could come up with. "So you took the bear back here?" Izuku's eye twitched as he looked at Mina, Fuku, and the bear, from behind his desk. The cub was currently nestled in Fuku's arms, snuggling against her. Izuku took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and just thought for a while. After a couple minutes of silence, Izuku opened his eyes and spoke. "Fuku, what is it you want to do with this bear?" I don't know." Fuku answered honestly. "Fuku, think about it, what do you want to do with this bear?" Izuku asked again. "Don't be afraid to say anything. Speak your mind." Fuku looked down at the bear, as it adorably stared back at her and nuzzled against her chest. "Can I keep them?" Mina didn't expect Fuku to say that, given how absurd it sounded. "Okay," Izuku said, almost nonchalantly. Mina definitely didn't expect that response. And neither did Fuku, as her eyes went wide with disbelief. Let me be clear, the only reason I'm allowing this is that you've made great improvements since getting here, helped out many of the other children, and have shown a great sense of responsibility, Izuku told her. This is a reward, as well as a risk I'm willing to take given how dutiful you've been. This is a big responsibility, and I expect you to feed it, tame it, and make sure they're healthy and happy. Is that understood? Why yes sir. Fuku nodded rapidly, half relieved and half scared. And thus another member was added to the Midoriya family. Beep. 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 Kay shot up as her alarm clock woke her, immediately up and ready to start the day. She turned off her clock and quickly jumped out of bed, running over to the window to see the sun rising outside. Good morning world. After getting dressed and brushing her teeth, Kay headed to the entry hall, where Izuku, Sai, Kiba, Shiroku, Yami, Yonda, Nara, aka Shina, Alice, and the Cerberus triplets, were lined up. Alright, everyone. It's time for our early morning run. Everyone ready? Izuku asked. Yeah. Everyone shouted. Okay. Let's go. Izuku told them, as he led the charge outside, to start their hour-long jog through the forest. Ah. Kay gave a content sigh, after drinking some lovely milk. After the jog, Kay was exhausted and covered in sweat, so naturally, she took a relaxing shower, before drinking that milk. Ding! Kay, still in her towel, and dripping water all over her room, went over to her phone and saw she got a notification from Izuku. Breakfast is ready. We're having omelets. Hiss. Kay's snakes gave a pleased hiss, as the girl herself was grinning ear to ear. She quickly threw off her towel and started getting dressed. Once she was done, she immediately rushed out of the room. After a fulfilling breakfast, Kay, Kyoku, and Eri went into Fuku's room, to play with the bear. Arrrrrrr. The bear gave a pleased sound, as the girls pet her. So what did you decide to name her? Kyoku asked. Yuna, Fuku answered. I named her after a character in one of my favorite mangas. It's cute, Eri commented. By the way, Kay, do you know what kind of bear she is? Fuku asked. I heard you really liked animals, and I could really use the help, if that's okay with you. I don't want to bother you or Dash. No problem. Kay interrupted her with a big grin. I'll give you all the facts you can bear. Everyone sighed. So, Yuna is a Japanese black bear, Kay explained, having already done her research. They're actually endangered. Which means there aren't a lot of them left. TCH, people. Kyoku pouted, knowing the exact reason why that was. That means we have to protect them no matter what. Kay stated resolutely. Right. Everyone else agreed. So what do I feed her? Fuku asked. Mainly berries and plant stuff, Kay answered, recalling what she looked up last night. But they can eat meat and stuff too. Bears can eat almost anything, but you should always double-check before feeding them something new. Lots of different animals have really weird things that they can and can't eat. Alright. Thank you, Kei-sensei. Fuku said with a bow. Kei giggled. I know all sorts of things about bears, so if you need help, don't pause and come to me. After telling Fuku pretty much everything she knew about bears, Kei did the only logical thing and went to the library to find out more. Kei was currently running around the library with a stack of books in her hands. Whoa. Suddenly she tripped, falling forward as the books spilled out of her hands. But before she hit the ground, one of Kyosei's tendrils wrapped around her, keeping her from falling. Be careful. Fu, who was sitting at one of the tables, warned, as he used Kyosei to put Kei back on her feet and pick up her books. If you run with something blocking your eyes, you're definitely gonna trip. Right. Thanks, Fu. Kay beamed, as Fu put all her books back into her arms. Why are you even doing research like this? Fu asked her. You could probably find things out faster on the internet. Aha. But this way is more fun. Kay claimed, as she went over to a table and laid down her books. It's like a scavenger hunt. I guess that's one way to look at it, Fu commented, before returning his attention to his manga. Kay was in the kitchen, with 9 bowls of water in front of her. Kota, Netsu, the triplets, Ken, aka, and Kiba were all in front of her, with serious looks on their face. Go! Kota called. Immediately Kay launched her head forward into the bowl, and at the same time, sent her snakes into the other bowls. Chug! 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 The onlookers cheered, as Kay gulped in as much water as she could with all her might. Gulp! 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 Bit by bit the water disappeared, until finally. Kay shot her head up from the now empty bowl and raised her arms in victory. I did it! Woo-woo! The onlookers cheered. Yeses! I need to pee! Kay shouted, before sprinting off, in the direction of the nearest bathroom. Bang! 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 Oh Jin! Kay called, holding a plate of food as she stood on the other side of Jin's door. I have food. Do you have to be so loud? Jin grumbled from inside. The door slid open, and Kay hopped inside. Thank you. Why is it always you? Jin groaned. Kay had made it a habit to serve Jin his lunch every day, regardless of his protest. Because you never go outside, and I want to see you. Kay said as she set Jin's lunch on a table next to his bed. This is the only chance we get to talk. There is a reason for that. Jin sighed, as he started eating. What's been happening outside? Kay then started to regale him with tales about what was happening in the world around them, as per usual. It was now late at night, and after a long day, Kay was finally tired, but she still had one more thing to do. Kay ran from the house, towards her destination, Kai's room. Once she reached the giant metal doors, she pressed the button to open them and found Kai sitting down, eagerly waiting for her. Big sis! Kai bellowed. Big little bro! Kay called right back, as she entered the room with a book under her arm. How was your day? Kai hope it was a good one. Ha ha ha. Kai laughed, being one of the few people who found Kay's jokes funny. All right. Let's get this show on the road. Kay said. Kai laid down and allowed Kay to sit against the base of his neck. Kay opened the book and began telling Kai's nightly bedtime story. Once upon a time dash. Obeda Zensha, president of the Hero Public Safety Commission, was currently sitting in a private meeting room, face to face, with none other than Izuku Midoriya. Next to her was her assistant and vice president Yakumura Mira, and next to Izuku was Giza, holding a suitcase. Madam President, thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Izuku told her. I believe we have a lot to talk about. Yes. Starting with those quirk erasing bullets. Obeda said, wasting no time at all. I would like it if you would sell those to the police and the commission. I've been considering that, Izuku admitted. Recently we found ways to make these bullets, without the use of my daughter's blood. Which makes the matter less complicated. However, as a quirkless person, I know very well what kind of effect being quirkless can have on a person, which is why I'm only considering selling the temporary version of the product. That would be acceptable. Obeda agreed. We can analyze the bullets ourselves and figure out the permanent formula then. Little did she know, Izuku already thought about this and had written in the contract she would later go on to sign, that they could only use the temporary bullets. Oh, and I want to make sure you're not using them in excess. Constant exposure to the temporary quirk erasers will do permanent damage to a person's body. Izuku explained. I trust that you'll use it only when needed. Naturally. Obeda nodded. So we have a deal. Let's not be hasty, we have other matters to discuss, Izuku told her. After all, I have so much planned. For example, did you know we are currently developing other forms of anti-quirk technologies? None of them are ready quite yet, but the progress is promising. We're also close to developing a technology to counter warp quirks. That is, splendid. Obeda looked at him with wide eyes. Such technology would be invaluable to the Commission, as well as the nation as a whole. Yes, which is why I've already had a discussion with the Prime Minister, Izuku revealed. You will likely be informed of it later on at some point. It was a rather long decision, most of it was around the new cure-all medicine I've developed. The what? Obeda's eyes somehow went even wider. It's a cure-all drug developed using the same technology as bullets. It has nothing to do with our meeting, so I won't discuss it here. Izuku dismissed. Instead, I'd like to show you one last thing. Giza then opened up the suitcase, revealing one of the mite fruit. A fruit? Obeda gave him a confused look. This is the latest development from our botany team, Izuku explained. The fruit of might. Named after all might. I have no doubt you're aware of trigger, well, this has similar effects. Except instead of dulling one's mental faculties, it enhances them. With the only downside being that it puts a person who consumes it into a harsh state of exhaustion after the 30-minute time limit is up. But so long as you only consume one fruit, it's completely non-lethal. I see. Obeda started to get nervous. The more Izuku revealed, the more she realized what this was. And what exactly do you want in return for all this? Just enough money to make a profit, Izuku said. And since I'm doing so much for you, I fully expect that favor to be returned. Ah, that's what this was all about. He wants me in his pocket. Obeda realized. Izuku was going to give her something, and then threatened to take it away if they didn't do what he wanted. What a wonderful businessman he'd grown into. Should I call? I trust that my friends here at the HPSC will help me with what needs to be done, Izuku said. How generous, Obeda responded. There really wasn't much she could do here. All the things Midoriya offered were already extremely valuable to them, and he would likely only make more. Not to mention he no doubt already made deals with the greater government, and by combining that with his cure-all, he would soon have incredible power and influence. It was an offer she could not refuse. All of the Sky Pirates were assembled in the meeting room, with Izuku appearing via the seer. I have confirmed that Detnerat is a key part of the Meta Liberation Army's financial supplies, Izuku said before his image was replaced by a map of the city and all close-by cities, with red dots on them. I want you to attack these locations, owned and operated by Detnerat. Cause as much damage as possible, and take anything valuable. And of course, no casualties, is that understood? Everyone nodded. Good, I also want you to steal as much data as possible. Especially if you find anything relating to the MLA. Izuku ordered. And if you find information connecting the MLA to Detnerat, you are to report it, and hand it over to Nizu. Sir, if I may, Kaza spoke up. If we do this, then won't the higher-ups just fire people to save money? That is exactly what I'm hoping for, Izuku said. Detnerat's highest-ranking members are all part of the MLA, meaning that they're likely only going to fire people who aren't members of the MLA. People who will then have a grudge against Detnerat, and will be looking for work. Those people will be very useful for what I have planned for the future. But rest assured, those people will be taken care of. Kaza nodded. Yes, thank you, sir. Be quick, All Might won't be active for the next 6 hours, but afterward you'll need to wait until he becomes inactive again, Izuku warned them. Hey boss, you keep saying All Might's inactive during such and such times, but what does that actually mean? Karaki asked. That is not for you to know, Izuku told them. It's because he's gonna be retiring soon, Kaza answered, causing her crew to give her surprised looks. He's been appearing less and less often as time goes on, dating back around 10 years ago. My guess is that something happened to him, and now he's on borrowed time. Time which he's been getting less and less of. How did you dash? Izuku was stunned. He knew she was smart, that's why he put her in charge, but to be able to put all that together. I'm not one of those idiots that can't see past all propaganda the HPSC has been putting out, Kaza said. All Might won't be around forever. Once you come to terms with that, it's easy to see the signs and put 2 and 2 together. I see, Izuku responded. It appears I underestimated your intelligence. I do hope you'll use that intelligence for more than discovering state secrets. With that, the image of Izuku vanished. I think we might have made him mad, Karaki said. No, he's just a bit spooked, Kaza said. Understandable, if news got out that All Might was gonna be gone sooner than later, the public would riot. So what do you think they're going to do when it happens then? Yoko asked. Who knows, not our problem, Kaza said as she went to leave. Get ready, we have 6 hours. I want to hit 2 facilities tonight. Khan, do you have the nearest location? Yes, we're already heading towards there as we speak, we'll arrive in 20 minutes, Rora said. Good, everyone get ready. Shift, Yo-Yo, and I will be on raiding duty. Ruff, Pai, and Lilith will be on pillaging duty. Kaza ordered. Khan, do what you normally do. You all heard him, take everything that isn't nailed down, and destroy whatever is. It's time to decimate. Meanwhile, at a Detnerat manufacturing facility, hundreds of people were hard at work in the factory, producing support gear at a rapid pace, to meet demand. Back in one of the offices, the overseer, known as Jet, a slim man with slicked green hair, was sitting back with an irritated look on his face. Damn that Redestro, what the hell is even doing? Kaboom! Suddenly the whole building shook, as the sound of an explosion rang out through the factory. What? Jet sat up in his chair, his eyes wide as he suddenly became alert. Kaboom! 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 The building shook rapidly, as more and more explosions could be heard outside, and Jet could even faintly smell fire and smoke coming from outside. Jet stood up, and ran out from the door, and much to his horror he saw absolute chaos unfolding outside. Giant holes had been burnt into the side of the factory, and weird multicolored tentacle monsters with one giant eye were attacking the workers who were attempting to flee. Wrapping them up in their tendrils, while others grabbed whatever they could and left out of the holes. Meanwhile, Ruff was grabbing things with massive hands made of sand, and taking them out of the holes. What the hell? Jet scowled, before jumping over the rails, and down towards the factory floor. As he fell, he activated his quirk, making small jets come out of the sides of his legs. Jet. Quirk, Jet. Allows the user to spawn jet engines from any part of their body. After landing, Jet immediately started rocketing his way toward the closest monster, smashing into it at full force, and splattering them into paint. What the hell? Jet looked down at his paint-covered fist in confusion. Shing! Suddenly a bunch of cuts and slashes appeared on his body. Gah! Jet coughed up blood, before collapsing onto the ground. So, I suppose you must be the boss, Shift said, as he approached the downed man. You should have plenty of good info for us. Screw you! Jet shouted as he used what was left of his strength, to transform his legs into big jets, and rocket toward Shift. However, when Jet reached Shift, he just went right through him. Slam! Then Kaza came in from the air, and slammed into Jet, nailing him to the ground. We weren't asking permission, Kaza said, using her immense strength to keep Jet pinned down even while he used his quirk. Whack! Then Karaki hit him in the head with her yo-yo, knocking him unconscious. So we can all agree that Midoriya is behind the sky pirate attacks, right? Karai asked, in a video call with All for One and Redestro. Oh, definitely, with the fact that they stole his boat, which he was making for seemingly no reason, and then immediately started attacking you, it's not hard to put two and two together. All for One said. We need to do something about this now. Redestro shouted. He's been attacking my facilities en masse. It's been a week, and already he's destroyed over a dozen of my factories, stolen hundreds of millions of yen from my company, and he's forced me to fire my workers en masse. Why haven't you set a trap for them yet? Karai asked. I'm working on that, but with a company as big as mine, it's hard to know where those damned pirates are going to attack. Redestro explained. And even if I did stop the pirates, nothing is stopping Midoriya from just creating more villains to attack us. We'll need to destroy the root of the problem if we need to succeed. All for One said. And that is Midoriya. And he has us in a rather difficult situation. The longer we wait the more powerful he becomes, yet if we act too much we draw the ire of the heroes, and bring all of them crashing down on us. We can't afford to play the long game. We need to destroy him in one fell swoop. We'll need to prepare one massive attack, using everything we have. And if we fail? Redestro asked. Well, the station won't be that much worse. All for One said. Although I do have a way we can increase our forces significantly. After all, once information about the Midoriya Foundation's new technology gets out, villains from all across Japan will want to get their hands on it. Speaking of which, we've heard news of the Foundation creating some facilities in the city, and that they have some rather strange machinery, Karai revealed. We're sending people to go after it. Hopefully, we can get something useful out of it. Meanwhile, back in Izuku's office, he and Nizu were having a cup of coffee. Today was extremely successful, Izuku said. We've pretty much got the entire government looking out to win our approval. It's good to know they won't get in our way, Nizu said. Now we're free to go at our enemies with little restraint. Speaking of which, is the trap ready? Izuku nodded. The prototype is armed and ready for its first test. We just need them to go after the bait. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, share the video and support the original writer. See you in the next video.